Oh, where does all the mail go? Right into that truck. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of the day it is that you are watching this. It's May 8th, 2021. You know what that means. It means another day, another story. But before we get to that, remember as always to like, share, subscribe, hit up my Patreon. I'm always posting new stuff there for you to give you bang for your buck while you're helping me out. The link to my Patreon is in the description below, along with the links to my Instagram and Facebook pages closely related to the content that I'm posting both here as well as my primary channel, Steve the Amateur Historian. If you haven't gone over there yet, head on over there. You won't regret it. If you like what I'm doing here, you're gonna love what I'm doing over there. And get out of here, bird. Oh. He got out of here. So just a few days back, I did a video about a guy who got busted with a stolen watch and claimed that someone had broken into his place, stole his cheap watch and left a more expensive watch in its place. Now, it takes a real grade A dummy to believe a story like that, but again, it hints at how dumb, criminals can be. I also did another video somewhat recently about a woman whose skirt went missing. You might remember some of these if you're following my channel. If you are, thank you. Woman stole another woman's one-of-a-kind skirt so that when the true owner saw this woman wearing the skirt, she knew it was hers because there was only one of its kind. So, this woman stole the skirt, probably thought she'd get away with it, didn't think about the fact that, she might be seen. The skirt was one of a kind. Well, that same thing can apply to a ring of keys as well. What am I getting at? Well, the Wallace family of Eugene, Oregon, went on a brief trip up to Portland, where I reside, and while they were gone from their home, someone broke in, rumbled through a bunch of their stuff, stole a bunch of articles. So they had the misfortune of returning home and finding that their home had been vandalized and a bunch of their items had been stolen. I feel like, obviously, home robberies still happen, but I feel like that was a very common. There was always prowlers just all over the place waiting to see a family throw some bags into their car and leave. And it's like, oh, they're going to be gone for a while, are they? Here's my shot. And someone took their shot. And the article, because these old newspaper articles, one of the dark sides of old newspaper articles is, of course, they're old, so they represent attitudes and perspectives of a different time, and they represent a world where people could say certain things that they can't say now, or at least shouldn't say now, and you could get away with it because it was more readily accepted. Because there was I'm gonna say it, but essentially the individual who goes unnamed in the article is simply described as a disreputable looking Jew. Now, this thing is twofold. One, it's representative of the time that you could get away with saying something that insensitive and offensive. On the other side, it was very easy for print media to say horrible things about people if they were criminals, even if it was a small crime. One of Portland's earliest infamous murders was a case involving a woman named Carrie Bradley, who was involved in the murder of a guy at this house of ill repute that she ran back in the early 1880s. And I remember one of the articles I read about this situation, in referencing Carrie Bradley specifically, the article essentially said, she may have been attractive at one time, but a life of crime had made her ugly, essentially. So it was pretty common for newspapers, if you had committed a crime or done something wrong, newspapers kind of had open season to insult and disrespect you any way they chose. And of course, this little article was no different. But the interest and the reason I referenced those other two stories is kind of the elements of both, kind of how criminals oftentimes aren't that smart, and how criminals can take something and not think about the fact that they might show up again before the previous owners at some point. So this thief broke into the home, stole some items. At least that's the presumed story. It's not mentioned if he possibly had any accomplices. It was just that, it was pretty obvious that this guy was involved. Because, back then, you break into somebody's house, you can steal a lot of stuff and get away with it. It's the 20s. Crime scene investigation isn't all that sophisticated yet. It's getting there. People get away with robberies all the time and are never caught. It was harder to, trace where items were. Sometimes it was just up to you. If you really wanted your lost or stolen items back badly enough, you kind of had to go vigilante about it. I'm not saying going around and shooting people that look guilty. I'm talking about just going around trying to find stuff. I could have done that when it's like the second time in this series that I'm referencing my mugging. But yeah, when I was mugged a couple years ago, a guy stole my camera and he told me he was going to take it to a pawn shop. And that to meet him back here where he had just held me up at gunpoint so he could give me the ticket so I could get my camera back. And I was like, I'm not coming back to this spot to meet you again. You just held me up with a gun. Even though the guy was actually, overall was pretty nice. I couldn't get the battery out of my phone, which he wanted. So he was like, well, I don't want to take your phone. So, but, I could have checked. But there weren't really any pawn shops within like a mile or two of the area. And this guy was really just kind of fading. I don't think he was actually taking it to a pawn shop. I think he was taking it somewhere else. And he just didn't really know what he was saying because he was having a clear drug withdrawal. So it was a situation where, like this, like my camera meant the world to me. But it was a situation where it was like, the moment I walked away and was still alive and didn't get shot, I had already accepted, I'm never seeing that camera again. And it really wasn't too big of a burden to replace it, except that it was the first time I used my new credit card. I had 0 purchases on it, and I've been in credit card debt ever since. Not horrible debt, but it's always been there. So, anyway, this guy breaks into the house and he does what a lot of criminals back then did, which is he sells his loot to various, pawn shops, hawk shops, what have you. Places that are going to take your stuff, throw you a little bit of money, and then sell the stuff probably on a markup. You've seen Pawn Stars, maybe. So that's essentially what this guy did. So Miss Wallace, the wife of the home, goes out and she visits a local pawn shop in Eugene, and she's just looking at all the various trinkets that are just, scattered about the store there. And it's referred to as a junk shop. I don't know if that was a common term used for pawn shops, hawk shops, or places like that, or if maybe it was just similar to those types of places, but it was just kind of a dingy, more sketchy type place, a place where they take pretty much anything you give them, no questions asked. Hey, here's somebody's wedding ring. All right, I'll take it. But Miss Wallace goes to this one particular joint in Eugene, and lo and behold, she looks down and she's like, that looks very familiar right there. And it was a set of keys that had been stolen from her home. Again, I talked about the woman noticing her skirt on another woman because it was a one-of-a-kind skirt. It couldn't be anything else but hers. Miss Wallace recognized that key ring as a one-of-a-kind because that was specifically, it had her family's mix of keys on it. And so immediately she starts asking questions. Who brought this in? And that was when the owner referred to the criminal in a rather anti-Semitic way. Now, it does seem like maybe the junk shop owner didn't necessarily know this guy's name, which means, because it seemed like there wasn't really an effort to, report it to the police, figure out where this guy specifically lived. It was just, this guy that looked like this brought this stuff in and sold it to me. So the issue wasn't fully resolved yet because this guy was still out on the loose. However, you know, if you're a criminal and you're robbing multiple places, I guarantee this guy didn't just rob the Wallace home and then be like, well, that was scary, I'm never doing that again. This guy's gonna keep doing it. So he, you know, resumes his activities of breaking into people's homes, stealing their stuff, so on and so forth. And if he doesn't think anybody's onto him, he's gonna keep bringing his stuff back to the same junk shops. So ultimately, not too long after Miss Wallace was at this particular junk shop, this guy returned there with more probably stolen goods to sell. So at that moment, boom, the junk shop guy was able to see him. He's in his shop. The authorities were reported to, or the authorities were contacted and reported to the scene, and they managed to, you know, get this guy before he managed to escape the scene. And another reason that his apprehension couldn't have been too long, I would think, after his initial, or after Miss Wallace's initial identification of her keys, is this guy still had items stolen from the Wallace home on his person. So that's, you can say whatever you want. Oh, I didn't bring those keys in. That wasn't me. You're confused. But when you get accused of that, and then you also have other items from the home on you, like, it's a done deal. We all know you did it. So the elusive robber was captured because he didn't think about the possibility that a woman might recognize her own set of keys. And why the heck, while I'm thinking about it, okay, maybe like this guy walks in with just a bag of crap, and he's just like, what will you give me for this big bag of crap? And the proprietor of the junk shop's like, I'll give you such and such for your bag of crap, and he just takes it all and separates it out later. But even then, it's still, what boggles my mind is, like, Miss Wallace noticed her keys because they were obviously out on display. It's just, I don't know, I don't know pawn shop etiquette. I don't know if they just threw everything out there, figured, you know, everything will sell at some point. It just, you know, I can understand putting trinkets out. I can understand, you know, things that people might actually buy and put up in their home or use for something. But why would he put a set of someone's, like, own set of keys out on display for purchase? Who's gonna buy that? Like, an average person isn't even gonna know whose keys they are. It's not like they're gonna buy them and be like, oh, I could sneak into their home now. They're not gonna know who these keys belong to. And yet that's a specific way that Miss Wallace figured, you know, that was the beginning of the end for cracking this case, was the junk shop owner just put someone's private set of keys out with everything else to be purchased. I don't know, maybe that was the norm. They just put everything out. But for me, looking at that, I'm like, what the hell? Why would you put that out there with everything else? I'm confused. I don't get it. I mean, thank God he did, because it helps figure things out. But other than that, I don't know. Screw it. It got solved. That's really all that matters in the end, right? So thank you, everybody, so much for joining me today and my little story about yet another criminal who got caught because they either just didn't think they'd get caught or they just did the wrong thing that led to the unraveling of their criminal experience, at least for that time. This guy probably, if he did get busted and go to jail, probably wasn't in there that long. Robberies were so common back then. But anyway, thank you again so much from the heart for watching today's video. If you like what I'm doing, remember to like, share, subscribe. They're all things that help my channel grow. You can also hit up my Patreon. That is a place where you get something and I get something, because I'm always posting new stuff there for you, and you're obviously helping me. The link to that is in the description below, along with the links to my Instagram and Facebook pages closely related to the content that I am posting both here as well as my primary channel, Steve the Amateur Story. If you haven't gone over there yet, head on over there. You won't regret it. If you like what I'm doing here, you'll love what I'm doing over there. And also, by this point, I am posting these videos on that channel as well for extra viewership. So you can see them here or there. All that said, thank you again for watching. This has been Steve, and I'll see you tomorrow.